Yes, I've written, it took me a long time. That was about the last thing that I started developing in all of the various things that I've explored musically is songwriting. And what really sort of set me on that path was when I had television, it was years ago, I happened to be flipping through the channels with the remote, and I see Dolly Parton, who's a wonderful songwriter and singer, and she's on one of those morning shows, and she starts singing one of her own songs along with a little karaoke track, and she's singing completely in the wrong key because she couldn't hear the track properly. And there she is on national television in the morning singing to everybody in the United States, totally off key. Now, that didn't hurt her career one bit. She'd already launched herself, into prominence. It struck me that here's this woman, a prominent performance artist and songwriter. She can do such a horrific job of one of her own songs on national television. And it made me consider, I'd been beginning to write songs, and I thought, well, who's going to sing my songs? Nobody, except me. I've got to sing my own stuff. And that kind of encouraged me, that just seeing that she stumbled. I'm sorry, Dolly, but that's what pushed me into just making the decision to really start singing my own material and getting it out there. I figured if she can embarrass herself that badly, I couldn't do any worse. And I've been writing some incredible stuff. One of my songs reaped international attention for me in early 2009. I wrote this song called Wall Street Bailout Blues. And it was when at the time I had some television, so I was listening to all that come down, in October, I think it was early October of 2008, and listening to the newscasters parrot that news over and over again about how everything was coming apart. And the song just kind of wrote itself. And I couldn't believe it. I get a phone call from my wife. I happen to be carrying her cell phone with me, and I'm not really a cell phone guy yet. I haven't joined the cell phone generation. But I'm down on the street. She calls me up. She says, somebody from the Wall Street Journal called up. And I go, hey, look, just tell them we don't want a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. I'm sorry, we can't afford it. I'm not into it. And she said, no, this is a guy who's calling about your song. He says he wants to interview you. And he interviews me on Inauguration Day when Obama was inaugurated. A half hour later, he calls me from Boston. And he's a writer. And he wasn't sure his story would get picked up or, what they'd do with it. If they did anything with it. It ended up being center page, below the fold, on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, February 6, 2009. It's called Songwriters Take on the Recession. There was a subtitle too, I can't remember it right off the top of my head, but they included me later on page 8 or 6 or something, and they gave me the biggest. They asked me for a photo. Mine was the largest photo. I was mentioned right after Neil Young, who is also a political songwriter, and Neil got like 6 lines. Not like he needs any more advertising than that, but right after Neil, they gave me 3 big paragraphs. So how sweet is that? Other people that were mentioned in the article: Tom Paxton, another hero of mine, Woody Guthrie, a famous political songwriter, of course, and that article got picked up in the Euro edition of the Wall Street Journal, as well as they called me up just before it came out. They said 2 million people are going to see your picture in the Wall Street Journal. I found out 5 days later it got scattered all over Europe. After that, 7 days after it got in the Wall Street Euro edition, it was picked up by Courier International out of Paris, France, and they have an international news magazine that goes all over the world, and that same story got scattered all the way back all over the planet again. And I couldn't pay a promo crew to put something like that together. It all just happened. It all just fell into my lap because I was writing songs from, from my perspective about what's going on all around me. And when that happened, it was just like more affirmation to kind of keep after that. I probably have maybe roughly 100 songs. So not terribly prolific, but that's a lot of songs for me, and I love them all. I'm still in the process of writing some and putting some together, so I always have a cache of songs that I'm working on, and I have a big bag of songs of my own now. I sing almost only my own stuff at this point. Used to sing more early blues because I really did, but they were my interpretations of early blues, so my melodies with just like early blues lyrics applied to them, kind of like, oddly, it's very similar to what Dylan does. And I didn't know this about Dylan so much, but I was street performing in front of the Dylan line to get into his concert down in Soto, and a woman flipped me a concert ticket. I was getting ready to leave, and this young woman comes up and she says, well, I'm looking to give somebody a ticket. Are you a fan? I go, well, So I go in and I get a chance to watch Dylan. It was like a $50 ticket. And I've never seen him live, but hearing him live and hearing what he does, I was amazed that, it was a very similar kind of approach that he does with he takes old blues riffs and old blues lyrics and then, changes the lyrics to kind of go along with these old licks. It's a very similar thing to kind of what I've been exploring in terms of blues. And that never really sunk in. I've always thought of Dylan from the perspective of his original songs, not so much from his blues influenced stuff, more his folk influenced material. So that was a great affirmation for me to keep after what it is that I was doing.